What if you had one chance to undo the worst day of your life? The story begins with an artist named David, deeply immersed in his painting. After a while, he suddenly feels inspired to take a break. He wipes his hands and decides to visit his old flame, Lisa, who lives next door. But just as he's about to leave, his young daughter, Leonie, calls out sweetly, "Dad, since you're not busy, why don't you come catch butterflies with me?" Unfortunately, David's mind is already elsewhere. He's driven by impulses and pays her no attention. Instead, he goes to Lisa's house. While he's fooling around with Lisa, something tragic happens. Leonie falls into a pool and drowns. David returns home only to find her lifeless at the bottom. The loss hits him like a truck. Even though 5 years have passed, the pain still haunts him. He's been trying to apologize to his wife, Maya, ever since, but she won't even give him a chance. Maya is heartbroken and furious. "Even rabbits don't go back to chew on grass they've left behind," she says. "You were messing around next door and ended up costing us our daughter. How dare you show your face?" One day, overwhelmed by guilt and despair, David goes back to the pool where it all happened and jumps in, ready to give up. But just as he's about to drown, his best friend Mark pulls him out in time. Later that night, while wandering the streets, David spots a butterfly. Something about it draws him in. He follows it into a tunnel and, on the other side, finds himself back in his neighborhood, but things are off. The season's different, and it's daytime. Then he sees something strange, another version of himself heading to Lisa's house. That's when it hits him, he's traveled back in time to the day his daughter died. Realizing what's about to happen, David rushes home and manages to save Leonie just as she falls into the water. Now, he's not the same careless man from 5 years ago. This time, he wants to make things right. He's determined to be a good husband and a loving father. They say a changed man is worth more than gold, and David is ready to prove it. But just as the younger David returns home after his visit to Lisa, he runs into his future self. Without a word, the two versions of David get into a brutal fight. In the scuffle, the older David accidentally kills his past self, right in front of young Leonie. Panicked, he buries the body in the garden and dyes his hair to look like his younger self, hoping to keep everything under wraps. At dinner, Leonie starts acting strangely. She keeps saying that David isn't her real dad, no matter how much Maya tries to coax her. Maya also senses something's off. How did her selfish husband suddenly become so attentive and warm? Still, she's not quite ready to complain. Since David had left his phone at Lisa's, he nervously heads back to get it. Lisa still wants to reconnect, but David firmly turns her down. His changed behavior puzzles her. As David leaves Lisa's house, he runs into Mark again. David confesses everything about the tunnel and what he did. Mark doesn't believe him at first and jokes, "What happened to your old self, huh?" David says, "I buried him in the backyard." Mark bursts out laughing, thinking it's a sick joke. But because the grave was shallow, and the weather was hot, flies began to gather, threatening to expose everything. Luckily, David manages to cover up the signs just in time. To rebuild trust, David opens up to Leonie. She asks, "What did you do to my dad?" "I am your dad," he says gently. "But I'm not like the old me. I'm better." Eventually, Maya accepts David's transformation. Their relationship slowly begins to heal. After putting Leonie to bed one night, they finally reconnect, as a couple and as parents. The next evening, Maya throws David a birthday party. Everyone's having a great time, until things take a sharp turn. It turns out Leonie had told Mark about seeing David kill, well, David. Mark confronts David, "What's really going on here?" But before they can argue further, their nosy neighbor Dave appears out of nowhere and knocks Mark out cold. Dave says, "We've got to get rid of him before your wife and daughter find out." Together, they drive Mark's body to a remote spot and dispose of it. Now David knows things are spinning out of control. He rushes home, grabs his wife and daughter, and heads to the tunnel, hoping to escape as a family. But midway through, Maya senses something's wrong and turns back with Leonie. When David realizes they're not with him, he races back, only to be attacked by Dave. The next morning, Maya confronts David. "What happened last night? You were acting so strange. What's really going on?" David brushes it off, saying, "Mark and I smoked something. Got a little out of it. I didn't mean to scare you." Just then, Dave shows up again and invites David over. At his house, Dave reveals the shocking truth: he, too, is from the future. 5 years from now, he was in serious debt and at rock bottom. He planned to end it all, but, like David, he stumbled upon the tunnel. The 5-year time gap gave him a major advantage. He invested in real estate, played the stock market, and made a fortune. But there's a catch: the only way to take over your past life is to eliminate the old version of yourself. It's a hard rule. No exceptions. And Dave isn't alone. A lot of others have also used the tunnel, people who were desperate, regretful, or made terrible choices they wanted to undo. The next day, Leonie goes to play at a neighbor's house. Maya sees something shocking outside, another version of the neighbor couple, arguing intensely. Turns out they also traveled back from 5 years in the future and are now debating whether to kill their past selves. Curious, Maya follows them and witnesses them actually going through with it. She grabs her daughter and rushes back home. Soon after, the future versions of the neighbors arrive at David's house with the police, claiming custody of their daughter. Maya tries to stop them, but the situation is too confusing to explain, and the police officers? They're time travelers too. Right after they leave, David receives a call from future Maya. He heads to Dave's house and finds her there. She tells him the devastating truth: "Our daughter died in my world. I came back because I want to be with her again. You want forgiveness? Fine. Let's start over." David faces a heartbreaking choice. If he accepts her offer, he'll have to get rid of the current Maya. He grabs a gun and heads out, but runs into future Mark along the way. Mark, who's also changed, says, "I'm not the same person anymore. I'm really sorry for everything. And I'm just glad your daughter's alive." David can't bring himself to harm Maya. After struggling with his conscience, he makes his decision. With Dave and the others chasing him down, David helps the current Maya and Leonie escape through the tunnel, sending them safely into the future, where they can have a fresh start. In the final scene, David sits quietly with future Maya by a water wheel, lost in thought. Whatever's on his mind, one thing is clear: he's finally made peace with his past. In life, there's no undo button. No magical fix. Every day counts. Be sincere, live honestly, and never treat life like a game.